who will be attending the meeting from home. He is unable to attend due to COVID, but under the regulations of the Local Government Administration, Regulations 1996, the standing orders, we are able to allow a councillor to now, sorry, not the standing orders, the emergency service provisions that we're under, we are now permitted to allow a councillor or councillors who are unable to attend a meeting in person to attend virtually, and this is what we'll do tonight. So on that note, I'd like to ask Councillor Barry Winmar to present the Welcome to Country.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land we are tonight, the Noongar Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Ngalak Yining Kurlang Kura Ngalak Noich Nija Noongar Boja. Noongar Mert Jerpen Yining Nija. Ngalak Kwabrak Noongar Boja Kurlang. From the beginning of time to the end, this is Noongar country. Noongar people have been graceful keepers of our nation for many, many years. Ngalak Jerpen Mamba Boja Ngalak Bala Mamba Kwab. Ngalak Kurt Jerpen Nija Ngalak Maya Maya Yining Noongar Boja. We respect the earth, our mother, and understand that we belong to her. She does not belong to us. In all her beauty, we find comfort, well-being, and life that creates a home for everyone that has become a keeper of Noongar country. Look, listen, understand, and embrace all the elements of Noongar country that is forever our home. Kaya Wanju, Ngan Barry Winmar, Wajak Baladong Marman, Ngan Court Jerpen. Nunuk Nija Noongar Boja, Dajli Wangani Noich Noongar Boja. Hello and welcome. My name is Barry Winmar and I'm a Wajak Baladong man. My heart is happy as we are gathered on Noongar country and speaking here on Noongar country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winmar, and on behalf of the City of Kwinana, I'd like to acknowledge that we do meet here in the land of the Noongar people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and those future emerging leaders. I'd now like to call upon Councillor Sherilyn Wood to read the dedication.
May we, the elected members of the City of Kwinana, have the wisdom to consider all matters before us with due consideration, integrity and respect for the Council Chamber. May the decisions made be in good faith and always in the best interest of the greater Kwinana community that we serve.
Thank you. Our CEO is currently on a leave of absence, and we have Mr. Gary Fisher sitting in as the acting CEO, so we promise to be very gentle with you as your first time as an acting CEO, and I'm sure it'll be fine. We have the only apology well, it's not an apology because we do have Councillor Brown virtually, so we do have no apologies. We have two questions that have been kindly forwarded on notice from a Mr. Phil Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver is not in attendance today, but I'm happy to read those questions out. And the first question is in relation to whether the City of Kwinana can provide free mulch points near the council depot. I've been advised the council does not provide mulch to residents. A number of years ago, though, the city did offer mulch to residents, coinciding with the city's seedling subsidy program. The mulch provision ended for a number of reasons, including resident safety and the free mulch being on-sold and undercutting local businesses. In addition, the city fully utilises now the mulch it generates through tree pruning activities. So giving away mulch would result in the city having to then buy mulch for its own mulch needs. Free mulch is available, however, via the Rockingham Waste Facility on Miller Road. The second question is in relation to the trimming of trees, of council verge trees, specifically lilac, Cape lilac nuisance trees because of overhanging branches onto private property. The response is that the city does not provide a service to prune trees for aesthetic purposes or to address inconvenience created by tree litter or shading. Verge trees are pruned to address road and footpath clearances, power line clearances, and to ensure the health and safety of a tree. While the city does not intervene with tree branches overhanging a property, the city will prune branches that overhang a house or other major structures. The particular tree in front of Mr. Cleaver's home was pruned several years ago for safety reasons with the removal of dead wood. More recent inspections have not determined a need for further pruning, and the trees are a black cockatoo foraging source, so service as an important environmental purpose. Do any of the officers have anything additional to add to the response to Mr. Cleaver? If not, we will provide a response in writing to Mr. Cleaver and thank him once again providing questions in writing ahead of the council meeting, so it's given the officers the opportunity to be able to provide a response in a timely manner to him. Thank you. We have no petitions. We have no presentations, deputations. Item 7.1, confirmations of minutes. Now, just to be clear, for the purpose of Councillor Brown attending virtually, we're unable to see how you vote on a matter. So I'm not sure if there is a little icon on the Teams electronic. Otherwise, I'll be asking you, Councillor Brown, if you could just verbally state how you vote for and against an item as we go through. So item 7.1 is a confirmation of the minutes held on our ordinary meeting on the 23rd of March 2022. Do any councillors have any issues to raise with those minutes? If not, there is a recommendation that they be accepted. Moved Councillor Wood, Dennis Wood, seconded Councillor S. Wood. Anybody wish to speak against those minutes? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Councillor Brown?
I vote in favour of the recommendation, Your Worship.
Thank you. So carried. Are there any declarations of interest by any of the elected members? Nil. Are there any requests for leave of absence? There are no items brought forward for the convenience of those in the public gallery, and there is nothing on item 11. Item 12.1 is a recommendation from the Executive Appraisal Committee, and because it is dealing with a staff matter, we will ask this matter to go behind closed doors at item 25.1 later on in the agenda. There is nothing on item 13. Item 14.1 is a Disability Access and Inclusion Plan for 2022 and 2027. Now, I understand that Councillor Brown had... I'll ask first. Are there any questions on this specific item? I know that Councillor Brown did have a few questions that have since been answered, and there is a officer's recommendation with an amendment. Would somebody like to, or Councillor Brown, would you like to introduce this item as you are the person who wishes to put forward an amendment?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So just for context, in some prior correspondence, the city indicated that while the main City of Kwinana website is compliant with what's known as Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.1 AA standards, other City of Kwinana online services that are commonly used, such as application lodgement, rate payments, and websites like the Kwinana Robotic, these are currently not compliant or a work in progress. So, and for clarity, non-compliant services, they may not function as expected across different device types like desktop, mobile, and tablet, and may not function as expected with specialised software that our residents with additional needs may rely on. So in the spirit of supporting our residents who may otherwise use these other services independently if they were compliant, it has been proposed that an amendment to item 14.1 to include some wording around working towards the rest of the City of Kwinana's online services functioning in compliance with accessibility standards such as Web Content Accessibility Guideline WCAG 2.1 AA standards. So a broader application of what we've seen on the main website. And by working towards these standards guidelines, we can work to ensure that all of our residents have equitable access to the City of Kwinana information services, and they're empowered to operate these resources independently wherever possible.
Thank you for that background. Would you like to move the recommendation with the amendment?
Yes, I think there was some discussion around the specific wording. Oh, I've lost the screen.
There it is.
Yeah, so currently the wording says ensuring the city provides online information in accessible formats as item 3.3. But there has been some additional consideration around whether we can add some wording such as including broader application of Web Content Accessibility Guideline WCAG 2.1.
So that was the wording that was sent through. So I'll just pass over to our acting CEO.
Yeah. Through you, Your Worship. So you, as you see in front of you, the current Disability Access Inclusion Plan, we've kept it, the outcomes and the strategies at a high level. So in previous steps, it's been very action orientated, but we've elevated that on this occasion to just to keep that at that high level, and an internal working group of staff obviously identify those key actions. So that was the reason for me to add that additional strategy point 3.3 to ensure the city provides online information in accessible formats. And then the team will then obviously have a look at our current formats, and obviously we can't do everything at once. So obviously we look at staff resourcing about when we can provide that. But I assure you the team's already looking at currently through the city's website and the Aquatic website. It's just that some of our other applications that are customer facing, we're hoping that One Council, when that comes in, they'll be able to upgrade that at that point, but that may be some time away. So that's the reason I've made it broad, and I'm proposing that the next level down actions are developed by the staff.
So the next level down actions would basically delve into what Councillor Brown is identifying, but at the moment your amendment is satisfying in the sense that it is the additional 3.3 inclusion, but it's much more broader level.
Yes.
Councillor Brown, are you happy to move that?
Yes, I think that satisfies the discussion that has unfolded. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you for that. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Estwood. Councillor Brown, I know you've introduced it, but would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Nothing further from me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Estwood.
I'd just like to say that inclusiveness shouldn't have any barriers, and this policy goes a long way to achieving this for our community.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? If not, I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Brown?
Thank you. I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Against? So carried. Thank you. Item 15.1 is the charitable rates exemption for Victory Kwinana Incorporated, Daughters of Destiny. Are there any questions of the officers in relation to this recommendation? If not, we do have a recommendation. Would somebody like to move that way? Moved Councillor Kearney, seconded Councillor Estwood. Councillor Kearney, would you like to speak on this item? Councillor Estwood? Anybody like to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Brown? Are you in favour?
I vote in favour, Your Worship. Thank you.
Or against? Thank you. So carried. Sorry, just what page is it? Page are we at? Just waiting for the bookmark, sorry. Could somebody just advise me what page our next agenda item is so I don't have to go? 39. Oh, 139, okay. 139. So So there's nothing on item 16. Item 17. Thank you. It's proposed road names for lot 911 to 913, 1119 and lot 3 Thomas Road, Casuarina. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Really a question, but I'm quite curious about the name Eagle Street, because I know the report does go into the fact that there seems that there are eagles in this area. Was not aware of that. That was all. And hawks. Okay. Thank you. Well, if the officers have confirmed that that is the case and that is the name of the street that the proponents want, then would somebody like to move that way? Moved Councillor Winmar, seconded Councillor Rouse. Councillor Winmar, do you wish to speak on the item?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Rouse?
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Anybody wish to speak against the item? Thank you. Councillor Wood, D Wood. No, please.
I think that Eagle Street would be better than called Discovery.
As the alternative.
Yeah. Rather than have a West Coast Eagle supporter naming
Are you proposing or foreshadowing, well, first of all I've asked, would the mover and the second be agreement with that, or otherwise you'd foreshadow that if this motion was lost? So Councillor Winmar and Councillor Rouse, would you consider the street being named Discovery Street as the alternative? Councillor Winmar?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. The alternative name that's been prescribed would probably suit the area, and especially with the links to the settlement of Kwinana in the first, so I can see where that would have more relevance around it. If that was an alternative that was to be put forward, I would support that, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Rouse?
Thank you, Worship. It's hard to sort of relate how the naming of the rest of the estate's going to go. They have a theme, the local fauna, which I presume would include many birds, not just slip of the tongue. Not just eagle, but hawks and maybe swans, maybe crows, going with the AFL theme there. But also all the other wildlife within the area. So as it is, I'm happy with the Eagle Street as it is. Thank you, Worship.
So if that's the case, Councillor Wood, you are foreshadowing that should this motion be lost, that you would then foreshadow an alternative being that Eagle Street would be replaced with Discovery. Is that correct? Yes, okay. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak for the motion? Against? If not, I shall put this motion all in favour. Councillor Brown?
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Thank you. Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. It was Councillor Wood and myself. Voted against. Thank you.
And Cheryl.
Oh, Cheryl,
Yeah.
sorry, Councillor S. Wood. Thank you. So we have an Eagle Street. Thank you. Just waiting for next.
Worship, there was some confusion over what we were voting for. Could you just go through it again?
Okay, so there was the mover and the seconder for the current recommendation said they were happy to move and second the recommendation. I asked if anybody would like to speak against it. You spoke against it. You foreshadowed that you preferred Eagle Street. I asked the mover and the seconder if they would agree. That would mean they would withdraw their previous agreement to Eagle Street and support Discovery. Councillor Barry Winmar said that he would, whereas Councillor Rouse was quite happy to leave the motion as it was, which meant then we go to council, put the motion was carried.
Which motion was carried?
The current one, that it is Eagle Street.
Sorry, point of order, Your Worship. I don't believe Councillor Winmark was really given the option to withdraw moving the item, considering there was a request to amend the recommendation.
Right.
So you gave the mover and the seconder the option to agree with Councillor Wood's
Yes.
amendment. Councillor Winmar did agree with Councillor Wood's amendment, whereas Councillor Rouse did not. So though Councillor Winmar wasn't given the option to actually withdraw because he agreed with Councillor Wood.
But
So I
would
think that's
that
where the
not have-
confusion was, Your Worship.
But therefore would still have the same outcome in that you'd have to, because the seconder didn't agree to withdraw, therefore you would put it to council. And then there was a foreshadowed that if the motion was lost, then you would, is that what?
So I guess what I'm saying is it probably should have required a new mover and seconder because Councillor Winmar agreed with Councillor Wood to change the motion.
Okay,
So in
what
actual
were the
fact, then you only
numbers?
have a seconder.
What were the numbers on that as far as? 5-3, so it would have been split anyway. Okay. Well, in those circumstances, I'll ask the officers if a rescission motion or if there's been an irregularity in the meeting.
Through the mayor, or to the mayor, when you make a resolution, it's on the understanding that everyone is voting for a particular thing. If there was a confusion about what they were voting for, then I would say you haven't really met the requirements for a motion, so you probably should redo it. Call for a
Okay.
mover and seconder again and make sure everyone's clear on what they're voting for.
Okay. So as far as the procedure goes for that, do we need to do a rescission or we just, what's the process?
Through the mayor, I'd say we just start again and say
Yep.
it wasn't clear.
Okay, happy to do that. So therefore, we have a motion which has the proposed names, Central Avenue, Market Street and Eagle Street. Are we happy to, do we have Councillor Feasy.
So I will move with an amendment, Your Worship, to replace Eagle Street with Discovery.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wood. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on that?
No, Your Worship.
Councillor D. Wood? No, thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? Councillor Rouse?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I don't see the point of changing the changing the name to Discovery. Would see the point of the amendment at the moment, considering that we don't know what the rest of the streets and in the estate will be called. So I'd just like the original motion to. So in hindsight, yes, I'd like to. I'm against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who speak for? If not, would you like to
So the
close?
Yes, Your Worship. Just in relation to Councillor Rouse's comments, I think I agree with what he's saying, but however, the proposed road names which we are voting on, which is Central Ave, Market Street, and now Discovery Street, the other two names are not, in fact, bird related. So if they were bird related, then I would agree, but because they're not, I think Discovery fits, Your Worship.
Thank you. Therefore, I shall put this matter to the vote, and this is the amendment. All in favour? Which is Discovery. Councillor Brown?
I vote against the amendment, Your
Thank
Worship.
you.
Thank you.
The amendment's carried. Thank you. That would be 6-2. Thank you. What are we up to? Items 17.2 is a rescission of various council policies. Do we have any questions on those policies? Thank you. Do we have a mover? Moved Councillor Winmar.
Second that, Your Worship.
Sorry, Councillor Kearney had a hand up first. Second, Councillor Kearney. Councillor Winmar, do you wish to speak on this item? Councillor Kearney. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Brown?
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Thank you. So carried, 8-0. Item 18.1 is our monthly financial report for February 2022. Are there any questions on this report? Thank you. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Moved Councillor Rouse. Seconded Councillor Winmar. Councillor Rouse, do you wish to speak on the item? Councillor Winmar. Anybody wish to speak against? Put it to the vote. All in favour. Councillor Brown.
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Against? Carried 8-0. Thank you. 18.2 is a proposed disposition by way of a lease for part of Reserve 24571 being Brownell Crescent in Medina, which is the Kwinana Scouts Hall. Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Your Worship. My question is in relation to not specifically this item, but I guess the fact that their current lease, which was for a term of 20 years, is expiring. There are a number of facilities that are leased by community groups who currently have no lease. So I'm just wondering why, and those particular groups have had no lease for some time, why they haven't been brought to council to actually enact a lease in the same situation as what we are requiring the Scouts.
I thought we were going through all our leases, but I'll ask one of the officers if they're able to.
Through you, Your Worship, if for particular details, we'll have to take it on notice. But our staff are working through, to the extent possible, the leases. Like we do have some on run-on. Some have been quite. We haven't necessarily had great reception to entering into leases with some groups because we've modernised leases. So we are slowly working through that. That's probably the best answer I can give. Specifics, we'll have to do a bit of research.
Anything further? Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Kearney.
How many other organisations have a peppercorn lease? I know the golf course, and we're going to do the Boy Scouts and the tennis club. Is there any others in the area?
I think it's hard for us to answer that here today. I think we need to take that on notice.
Okay. Thank you. We're happy to provide that information to all councillors. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, that is actually, I have another question in relation to that, Councillor Kearney's question. Where does the figure of, $114 come from? My recollection back in the day, a peppercorn lease was $1, Your Worship. Is that inflation?
CPI. Thank you.
Through the chair, the council does set that fee as the part of the fees and charges. My understanding is that represents some administration costs.
Must have missed that in the budget, Deputy Mayor. Are there any other questions? If not, we have a recommendation. Would somebody like to move that way? Thank you. Moved Councillor Winmar, seconded Councillor D. Wood. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Brown?
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Thank you. Against? So carried, 8-0. (18.3) is disposition or proposed disposition of lease by way of a lease between the City of Kwinana and the Kwinana Tennis Club in Walgreen Crescent. Are there any questions, or imagine the similar questions which will be answered by the officers in relation to Councillor Kearney's previous question on item 18.2? So are there any other questions? If not, we have a recommendation. Thank you. Moved Councillor Rouse.
Second that, Your Worship.
Seconded Councillor S. Wood. Councillor Rouse, do you wish to speak on the item? Thank you. Councillor S. Wood. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Brown?
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Thank you. So carried 8-0. (18.4) is proposed closure of road reserve adjacent to lot 1001 and 1002 on which is Reliance Bend in Hope Valley. Are there any questions on this item? If not, we have a recommendation. Moved Councillor D. Wood, seconded Councillor Kearney. Councillor Wood, do you wish to speak on the item? Councillor Kearney. Anybody wish to speak against? Shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Brown.
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Thank you. Against? Carried 8-0. Thank you. There is nothing on item 19, 20, 21. Item 22, reports of elected members. Deputy Mayor.
Have we missed one, Your Worship? Budget variations?
What is that? 13.5, sorry, just hold on. Oh, right, okay. Thank you. Sorry, bookmarking. I did say from the outset we were having, or I was having difficulties with our new system. 18.5, we're on track. Budget variations. Are there any questions?
Yes, Your Worship. Just wondering if the Director could let us know exactly what's happening in the renewal of Pace Road, the car park.
Through the chair, yes and no. The staff are working on a design for Pace Road, basically in accordance with the master plan, but also in accordance with the place plan that was recently put together. So they're working up a design for the car park that will achieve those two high-level plans that they'll then take out to the community to do some consultation. So no, because we don't know the detail, but yes, but basically reconfiguring the car park and protecting the big trees.
Thank you. I have a question, and I did ask the officers on notice, just in case anybody is listening at home, in relation to the Black Spot program for the Gilmore Avenue, Wellard Road, Henley Road Boulevard intersection, and the question was specifically whether the road design would incorporate a roundabout on the Wellard Road, Henley Boulevard intersection.
Through the chair, no, the Black Spot project was identified through a road safety audit at the existing roundabout. So what it identified was the approach speeds to the roundabout were high, and there's a high likelihood of severe accidents at the location. The reason the project's been delayed is the cost to implement the project is greater than we originally budgeted for. So we've gone back to the funder to reprogram the work. So we've designed the works, and we'll look at construction at next financial year. The Henley Boulevard intersection is not really being part of it. It's just identified because it's so close. I have asked my traffic team, though, after this issue was raised, to have a look at the road and see whether there's look at what the problems might be and see whether or not things can be done to address it. With regards to a roundabout, it wouldn't fit. It would require a substantial acquisition of land and removal of native vegetation, so it's not likely we would do much to the intersection itself, but we are looking at some other complaints with regard to that road.
Thank you, and I think probably Councillor Rouse would support this, that there has been significant concerns from the minute that was original intersection was constructed. But if it's being looked at for some alternatives, that's fine. Any other questions? Thank you. We have a recommendation. Moved Councillor Rouse, seconded Councillor Winmar. Councillor Rouse, do you wish to speak on the item? Councillor Winmar. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Councillor Brown.
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Thank you. Against? Carried 8-0. Thank you. Now there's nothing on item. Take two. 19, 20, 21. Now we have 22, like deja vu, reports of elected members. Deputy Mayor.
Just briefly, Your Worship, I officiated at the citizenship in your absence, and I think we welcomed 36 new citizens, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Winmar.
Thank you, Your Worship. Participated in the citizenship ceremony. Also attended some neighbourhood day events. It was an exciting day to attend the Kwinana Transition Neighbourhood Day down at Sloane's Cottage. It was moderately attended. There were some small numbers there at the time. There was impending inclement weather, but it sort of held off. And the proceedings seemed to be enjoyed by people that attended that event. Then went to the Medina's local neighbourhood day at Ridley Green. That event was also that was a well-attended event, and there was a lot of interaction between the community and some organisations. And I'd like to extend my thanks and appreciation to those organisations that organise those events. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor D. Wood.
I have to fulfil those duties required of me today. Due to illness, I haven't been able to get to too much.
That is fine. And that's why there is 8 of us to assist. Councillor Rouse.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just briefly, on the 4th of April, on the Monday, I attended the Bullamara Many Hands Advisory Group meeting, which I'm sure you'll touch on in your mayoral announcements. So I had the pleasure of chairing that meeting, considering there's a couple of absences, and you attended online, Your Worship. And also on the Tuesday, the 5th of April, I finally got back to attending a citizenship ceremony. Bittersweet as my boys basketball team lost their semi-final, so they didn't make the grand final that night, which is normally on a Tuesday. And I'd just like to compliment the Deputy Mayor on the good job he did in your absence, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor S. Wood.
It's been a busy couple of weeks for meetings, but otherwise I've performed all those duties required of me. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Kearney.
I've performed the same duties. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no answers to questions which were taken on notice. Mayoral report, as tabled, I had last week off as a close contact, so whilst I was working from home, I wasn't attending in person, but there was still lots going on before and after, as highlighted in the report. Just something I'd like to touch upon is that there was a Mayor's Forum, a National Mayor's Forum, which was part of the Climate Change and Energy for Mayors Online, and it was the guest was the Shadow Minister for Climate, Chris Bowen. There were several issues raised. It was a very eastern states focused, but there were concerns expressed by the eastern states mayors in particular about the national disaster funding and the impact on insurance and people who are, they've had a disaster event they couldn't insure anyway because of where they are specifically living, if they're in flood-affected areas, and so the impact that has had on communities and future insurance. There was actually talking about a need for action in relation to these areas, as well as, it's all very well having policy, but you actually need real actions to assist the constituents behind those policies. One of the things I found very interesting was that if Labor did come to government, they will be proceeding with their community battery program, which would be rolled out in conjunction with local governments. So I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that in due course, subject to the outcome of the elections. But from what I understand, like the City of Kwinana has lots of solar panels, so instead of going into the grid, that will go into a community battery that then would save the residents and the city a lot more money. But it's the first I've kind of heard about it, so I thought it was a very good initiative. Whoever gets into government, that something like this would be the way to go. The CEO and I did meet with the District Police Superintendent John Leembruggen. We catch up once a quarter just to see how we are tracking, and believe it or not, our crime statistics are down. And the take-up for the rebate to log into the CCTV, the comms CCTV, has been very, very well received by the community, which is a great initiative by the City of Kwinana and the WA Police. Other than that, I also attended 5 of the local community neighbourhood day events, as foreshadowed by Councillor Winmar. Unfortunately, the rain, which is something the weather you can't control, was against at least 3 of those events. So the attendance was on the low side, but on the upside, many of those community organisations will have lots of sausages in their freezers that they can use throughout the next 6 months. I would like to thank the staff. There was nothing but compliments for the work the staff have done in trying to help the local community groups, even filling in their grant applications, right to actually showing up on the day, it was on the weekend, just to make sure that everything went well. And I think that was really great reflection on the City of Kwinana that so many community members have taken the time to contact and thank our staff. So if those, you know who those staff are, if you wouldn't mind just passing on the accolades to them. And finally, Councillor Winmar and I attended an event held at the Medina Primary School through the SMILE program, and there were 13 participants, mainly females, who are parents. It's called the Parents Next South Metro program, and they undertook 3 horticultural projects within Medina Primary School, and at the end of the program they received a certificate 2 in horticulture. If you haven't been to Medina Primary School recently, I couldn't believe, I hadn't been there for a while, the change in it, the work that's been done also by the city with the mulching at the front and the improvements to the road and the curbs, and then with the work that is done by the horticultural students is absolute credit. It's a beautiful, beautiful school. So I thank and congratulate those graduates. So they are my notices, my announcements, which I'll table. We have one item behind closed doors, which is to do with the CEO executive appraisal. Would somebody like to move that way? Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Wood, all in favour. Councillor Brown?
I vote in favour, Your Worship.
Thank you. Against, so carried. So we'll just suspend the visual and the audio, given it is a confidential item, then we shall come back from behind closed doors and announce the recommendation. Where's the recommendation? So I'm just trying to find the actual officer's recommendation rather than the that we. Okay. Won't be a moment. Item 12. Oh. Got the recommendation. Okay. Thank you. Just like to read out that council do appoint Mr John Phillips from John Phillips Consulting as the appraisal agent as detailed in attachment A to undertake the performance remuneration review of the Chief Executive Officer for 2021 and 2022, and there are some timelines adopted for the CEO performance review process. I don't believe I'm required to read out the timelines, other than the fact that we've now carried the recommendation to appoint Mr Phillips. Thank you. If there is nothing further, I thank you for all your attendance. Thank you, Councillor Brown, for taking the time, notwithstanding your current condition, to attend by virtual for this meeting. I'd like to thank the staff who've worked very hard today to allow this to happen. And if there's nothing further, I would also like to take the opportunity to wish you all a very happy, safe Easter. Look forward to seeing you back next week. On that positive note, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. At 6:20. Thank you.